Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. We're going to do something a little different here. Instead of my regular Ghosts in the Burb stories or longer, like 3-part short stories, I'm going to share The Cul-de-sac, a story that I've been working on for, I think, over 6 years at this point. I've realized recently that it is never going to be to the point where it will be traditionally published. I just don't have the ability to get it there. And stubbornly, I like this story. And I've taken some feedback and I have worked that in, but at the same time, I want it the way I want it. And I'm kind of stubborn about it. So it's going to live right here on the podcast feed, several chapters at a time. Just like with the usual stories, you'll be able to find the cul-de-sac chapters over on Patreon, at Ghosts in the Burb's Patreon. And you'll have it without all the intro and outro chitter chatter. And you can get that for the $4 a month or above level. Once I'm done and this entire thing is recorded, I'm going to create one file of the entire story, and that will also be available over on Patreon. So in about 2 months, this entire book will be recorded, and you can listen to it all in one place and download it on Patreon. But for now, we need to get through these chapters. This is a 300-page book, so we better get started. Here we go. The Cul-de-sac by Liz Sauer. Epigraph. I hate cul-de-sacs. There's only one way out, and the people are kind of weird. Vic, Garbage Man Number 1, The Burbs, 1989. Chapter 1. It was always about the cul-de-sac, but it didn't start there. It began with the apartment break-in. It had been a typical busy day for me at the library, and by the time I made it home that evening, I was hungry and irritable. Once I made it to our floor, I kicked off my boots and left them in the hallway so I wouldn't track salt and dirty melted snow onto our carpet. Engrossed in social media as I walked through the door, I didn't notice the shard of a broken flower pot until I stepped on it. My phone went flying, and that's when I took in the state of our apartment. It was a wreck. The television lay face down on the floor. Our old wing-back chairs were turned over, their legs snapped. The couch cushions were sliced open, their white fluff innards strewn around the room. My poor tiny garden, the 4 potted plants I'd brought back to life more times than I could count, had been shoved from their perch by whoever had scaled the fire escape and climbed through the window. The room was freezing. I retrieved my phone and limped into the kitchen, intending to dial 911. I should have backed out the door and gone downstairs to call the police from the lobby, but all I could focus on was getting my bloody foot off the rug and onto the tiled floor. I was peeling off my sock when I heard a noise. Phone in one hand, bloody sock in the other, I listened as heavy footsteps moved through the back of our apartment. I stared down the narrow kitchen into the sitting room that led to our bedroom, and a man appeared beneath the archway. For a second, I thought it was Tom, but that moment of relief quickly turned into confusion, then fear. It wasn't my husband. The man was in his mid-20s. I could see 2 collars beneath his gray hoodie, one a polo shirt, the other a t-shirt. His hair had been bleached poorly, orange near the roots, bright as straw at the tips. I took in all of this within seconds. The police wanted to know what color his eyes were, but I couldn't say because my attention had immediately been drawn to the box cutter in his gloved hand. He looked almost as surprised to see me as I was to see him. I lost track of time, he said, as though it were a casual encounter. Please don't hurt me, I managed in barely a whisper. A look of confusion crossed his face as he started down the kitchen towards me. There was a cutting board on the counter among the mess. I grabbed it and held it out before me as I backed into the living room. The man hesitated, and I ran for the front door, stepping on another piece of broken pottery. Despite the pain, I limped as quickly as I could out of the apartment, slamming the door behind me. I'd pressed the elevator button before I realized how stupid it was and took off down the stairs, screaming, "Help! Fire!" My mind pulling up an old afternoon talk show whose guest had cautioned, "No one will help you if you scream help, but they'll want to help themselves if you indicate they are in danger too." Neighbors must have been home. Actually, they most certainly were, as I learned later on, but none of them came to my rescue. I made it down the 6 flights and pushed my way through the double set of doors onto the sidewalk. I stood in the center of the street holding the cutting board as a makeshift weapon and watched as the guy flew out the doors a second later and darted off into the night. "Where's the fire?" I looked back at the building. The man who lived on the first floor stood with the doors propped open, his cell phone in one hand. I stared uncomprehendingly, taking in his navy blue cotton pajamas and Scotch plaid bathrobe. He wore gold under-eye masks. I felt a twinge of guilt for interrupting his evening. "Which floor?" he demanded. "I called 911. Chapter 2. The intruder trashed nearly everything we owned. He peed on our bed, threw our toothbrushes in the toilet, and emptied every single bottle of soap, makeup, and hair product onto the bathroom floor. The television was beyond repair. The kitchen, a disaster. Glasses and plates smashed, food destroyed. The refrigerator was a mess of ketchup, cracked eggs, and coffee creamer. And then there were my books. The covers ripped off my childhood collection of Agatha Christie's and Nancy Drews, their pages slashed. My R.L. Stine paperbacks, the ones I read repeatedly growing up and still revisited now and then, were in a sopping wet pile in our shower. When I'd entered the apartment, he'd just begun on our closet, so he only managed to destroy about half of our clothing before I interrupted him. No, we hadn't received any threats recently. No, we hadn't noticed any strangers skulking about as of late. No, we hadn't argued with coworkers or family members or friends, and so the police offered no answers, just tepid reassurance that the break-in appeared to be a random destructive act by an individual suffering severe mental illness. The guy had climbed up the fire escape 6 floors to our apartment and through a window, the swing-out kind you use a crank to open and close. It was mid-March, and we'd recently had a snap of warm days, so I'd opened that particular window a few times to let in fresh air. The most logical answer was that I'd forgotten to lock it. I truly didn't think I had, but it was agreed upon that I did. We filled countless garbage bags with our ruined belongings. We dealt with the mess on our own, the way I dealt with most things. I didn't feel comfortable asking friends for help, feeling almost embarrassed that something so ridiculous had happened to us. Tom's older sister, Sarah, offered to come up from West Hartford to help us, but we declined. We couldn't impose on her. She had 3 kids and a real asshole of a husband to worry about. Tom's parents had adopted him and his sister late in life. His mom had passed away from cancer 2 years before, and his dad lived in a memory care home close to Sarah. I didn't have any siblings, and my parents offered only lukewarm platitudes from their cabin on a lake in northern Maine. I'd long since learned not to rely on them for support, emotional or otherwise. Tom hauled the mattress and the box spring out to the curb, and we slept on the floor in sleeping bags. I saved empty ginger ale cans and lined the windowsills with them, a makeshift alarm if the guy tried to return. We lived like that for 2 months. And then, Tom found the house. Chapter 3. The decision to leave the city wasn't based solely on the break-in, but the event hastened our timeline. The suburbs were a predictable next step. Our college friends began having babies and scattered throughout the Commonwealth, seeking yards, garages, and well-ranked public schools. We weren't quite ready to start a family, but the concept loomed threateningly on the horizon. I was antsy at my job, having worked at the same library since grad school. That autumn, the rats in our apartment building, who made laundry such a daunting task, got curious and began exploring the upper floors. We had a bad winter. Feet upon feet of snow made Beacon Hill's charming sidewalks nearly impassable for weeks. And the commute to Tom's newly acquired dream job in Woodland Hills sucked. Whereas he'd been able to just walk across the garden when he sold Back Bay condos, his new drive to work cost him 40 minutes of brutal Mass Pike traffic each way. Tom's promotion to the suburban office had him selling the kinds of houses we thought might possibly be in our future. Before the break-in, I'd agreed to attend a handful of open houses in the burbs to appease him, but I felt like a looky-loo, traipsing through strangers' homes, peeking in on their lives. I couldn't really imagine living in any of those houses. Real grown-ups lived there, adults with brand new, rather than new-to-them furniture, real art and Nespresso machines, their garages expertly organized with bikes and snowblowers, shovels, and rakes. We lived in a tight one-bedroom apartment. Our furniture was new to us, our coffee pot a hand-me-down from our across-the-hall neighbor. We went to the movies, out for drinks, ordered in. I took meandering walks and escaped reality in books whenever I could get away with it. People with real grown-up lives lived in those houses, attended cocktail parties, ran turkey trots, and winterized their gardens. It just wasn't us. Well, it wasn't me. I'd worked hard to build a quiet, predictable life in the city. My mother's thinly disguised resentment and erratic moods, and my father's detachment made for a lonely, anxiety-laden childhood. Until that break-in, I'd managed to carve out an orderly, calm, if somewhat dull, existence. But whereas I'd always sought solitude and ease, Tom was all extroverted ambition and striving. Opposites attract. He pushed me to go out into the world of the living when I fell too far into hermit mode, and I reined him in when his ambition went just this side of manic. After the break-in, he stopped gently nudging me to consider the move and full-on shoved me towards change. I couldn't shake the feeling that the man would come back to finish the destruction he started. My doctor referred me to a psychiatrist who prescribed Xanax to help me to fall asleep, or fall back to sleep in the middle of the night, or calm down at the thought of entering their apartment alone. It took the edge off, but just barely. Don't get me wrong, I didn't want to live in that apartment anymore, but I wasn't convinced that a move to the suburbs was the solution. I suggested we look at apartments in the Back Bay. We could move to a building with a doorman. You've always said you hate the idea of having to interact with someone every time you come and go, Tom argued. He was right. I had hated that idea, but that was before I'd had the scare of my life. But Tom was adamant. The night of the break-in, he'd already been on his way home and was able to get to me pretty quickly, but Boston traffic was unpredictable. He mentioned over and over again that he couldn't stand the thought of being stuck in traffic when I needed him. His heart was set on a house in Woodland Hills, a place known for its charming downtown and 2-acre land requirement for homes built outside of said downtown. He said that he'd always dreamed of living there, and his promotion to the Woodland Hills office struck me as a cool coincidence, but then I wasn't really in any state to consider the coincidences that began to pile up. The constant hypervigilance and inability to sleep through the night left me exhausted and foggy. So I did my best to look at the suburbs through fresh eyes and convince myself that I belonged in those 4-bedroom homes with their 2.5 baths and semi-renovated kitchens. I'd begun obsessively scanning the faces of the men who passed me on the street or came into the library to check out books or use the computers. I was terrified of seeing our intruder again, paranoid that he'd come back. So at that point, where we landed didn't matter. I just craved safety and isolation. Had I been able to see the signs, subtle though they may have been, maybe I would have ended up in a soulless but safe apartment building in the Back Bay instead of that cursed cul-de-sac. But the ball began rolling before I even stepped on that piece of broken pottery. I see now that choice had only been an illusion. Chapter 4. Tom was dead set on Woodland Hills, even though our options were severely limited by cost. He insisted he wanted to live close to his office. I suggested that we at least look at less expensive towns right next door, but my resolve wasn't very strong. He was a real estate agent, so I trusted he knew what he was doing, and I wanted out of our apartment building as soon as possible. Just that week, I'd seen a rat in the stairwell on the 4th-floor landing. It was only a matter of time before they found their way up, and I didn't want to be sleeping on our bedroom floor when they did. The day Tom found the house, I got off work at 5, intending to hole up at a little cafe until he got back to the city. I was happily lost in Aurora Teagarden's latest amateur investigation when my phone buzzed. My heart dropped when I looked down at the screen. It was Tom, and I had the feeling he was calling to let me know he was running late. "Hey," I answered, unable to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "Where are you?" he asked excitedly. "Beacon Hill Books. Why? What's wrong?" "Nothing. Come outside. I'm headed down Charles Street right now." "Where are we going?" "Woodland Hills. I found the house." After fighting through evening traffic, we left the highway for a winding, car-sick-inducing road and reached Woodland Hills at dusk. We passed Tom's office, an old converted Cape-style cottage off Main Street. I'd only visited the place once, the week he made the move to the suburban office. His boss, Michelle, a preppy woman in her mid-60s, went full coastal grandmother with the office decor. It was charming in a uniquely New England way, moneyed and decaying at the same time. As we drove through the thoroughly quaint town center, Tom pointed out the local grocery store and CVS, a cute cafe called Roasted, several gift shops, a deli, and a competing realtor's office. "One of their agents is showing us the house tonight," he informed me. We continued past a massive white clapboard church, established in 1796, that towered over the town green. It was late May, and masses of blooming rhododendron lined the park, glowing hot pink in the evening sun. One glimpse at those flowers, and nostalgia began to do its work on me, bringing memories of my childhood visits to my aunt and uncle's house on the Cape. My parents had shipped me off for 2 weeks each summer to be accepted into the chaotic fold. My 4 cousins and all their friends ran wild, and as an only child, I'd loved the chance to feel crowded and overwhelmed. We continued on a road flanked by heavy forest, where massive oak trees and pines met overhead, blocking out the last light of day. "This feels pretty isolated," I commented as we drove deeper into the woods. "The house is just a little ways out of town." "How far a ways?" I pressed. "Only a couple more minutes. It's in a cul-de-sac," Tom explained reassuringly. "There are plenty of neighbors." We drove along in silence for a stretch before the robotic voice of the GPS declared, "Turn left in 500 feet onto Gehenna Circle." Tom slowed the car as we approached a stone bridge. "That's pretty cool, right?" A bronze plaque affixed to the stone read, "Acheron Pike." I peered out the window at the fast-moving creek flowing beneath us and whispered, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." Tom snorted. Ahead, a wide bank of trees formed what appeared to be a massive island at the center of the cul-de-sac. It was wild and densely packed with pine trees, maples, and oaks. Hydrangea bushes, not yet blooming, lined its edges, and just behind them, more of those happy, memory-inducing rhododendron. We followed the curve of the road past 3 colonial-style homes, all strikingly similar to one another, their landscape yards separated by bands of trees and flowering bushes. "This is gorgeous," I groaned. "There's no way we can afford it." "Not only can we afford it, it's below our reach number." "Oh, so it's the only dump in the neighborhood." "Here it is," Tom declared, ignoring the comment. "Number 4. Set far back on a yard of patchy crabgrass, shaded by mature oaks, stood a large center-entrance colonial, gray, with black shutters. Lanterns to either side of the front door illuminated the, you guessed it, rhododendron bushes lining the home's facade. Inside, the only light came from the 2 front right windows. A white Audi sedan sat idling in the driveway. Tom pulled in behind it and turned off the ignition. "Shall we?" I pulled my gaze away from the quintessential New England home and looked squarely at my husband. "What's the catch?" He smiled and leaned in for a quick kiss before opening the car door. "No catch. You're just married to a brilliant real estate agent." Chapter 5. A tiny woman with gleaming black hair stepped out of the Audi, and I reflexively smoothed my rumpled button-down as I took in her sheath dress and tailored blazer. "Hi, Virginia. Thanks for meeting us on such short notice," Tom offered. "This is my wife, May." An immense gold Rolex caught the light on the agent's slender wrist as we shook hands. "Before we go in, I'd like to reiterate that the estate currently has an offer under review. There's a good chance you're too late on this one." "We understand," Tom said quickly, shooting me a reassuring grin that failed to reassure me. "We're grateful for the chance to see it, especially since it hasn't even hit the market yet." "How can they already have an offer if the house isn't even on the market?" I asked, feeling hopeless. "The executor handling the estate asked our agency to begin the process by showing the property to a handful of vetted buyers." She turned her attention to Tom. "You're at Black Oak Realty, is that right?" Tom nodded. "And you currently live in Boston, Beacon Hill?" "Right again," Tom affirmed. "But we're itching to leave the city life behind. Ditch the commute, get more space, nice yard." "Of course." Virginia turned her gaze on me. "Do you work?" "I'm a reference librarian at the Boston Public Library." I left out the fact that I was at the tiny West End branch, judging that it wouldn't hurt to let this woman think I worked at the historic main building in Copley Square. "She finished top of her class," Tom said proudly, and I did my best to keep my expression pleasantly neutral. He was slipping into sales mode, and we were his product. "Your commute will be hell if you move out here," Virginia commented dryly. "You should take a peek at our town library. It's darling. In fact, my next-door neighbor serves on the board. I could put in a good word." "That's so kind. Thank you." Virginia studied us for a long moment, and I sincerely hoped to pass her scrutiny. I'd been well coached by Tom. We'd been through about half a dozen homes, and I was used to real estate agents probing through our backgrounds, attempting to determine whether we could afford to live in their town, and if so, whether or not we belonged there. Without Virginia's endorsement, we didn't have a shot at the house, no matter how good our offer. She turned toward the house abruptly and began traversing the crumbling brick walkway on her heels. I apologize. I didn't get a chance to turn on all the lights before you arrived. I had to take a call, and the service is spotty out here. Climbing the significantly eroded brick steps, she pushed open the door and stood back to allow us to enter the house before her. I stepped into the dimly lit foyer behind Tom and took in the staircase at the center of the house. Tom strode through the archway to our left and flipped a switch, illuminating the kitchen. The house was musty, as though it had been sealed shut for a very long time. It's damp, I pointed out, then caught Virginia's annoyed gaze. It just needs a good airing out, she said, then turned her attention to the kitchen. Obviously, new owners will want to renovate. I followed her into the room and found the comment to be a colossal understatement. The Tiffany-style pendants above the kitchen island were no match for the darkness created by green Formica countertops, dark cabinets, and walls a color somewhere between mustard yellow and beige. Moreover, it was anyone's guess as to whether the ancient appliances worked. But the space was huge. The combined kitchen and dining room ran the full length of the house. Despite its state, I could see its potential. Counters and appliances could be replaced, cabinets painted, new lighting installed. Who owns the house? I asked. Olive Talbot. Why is she moving? Actually, she passed away about a month ago. That's too bad. It certainly hasn't affected interest in the house. Why would it? I asked. Virginia pursed her lips, obviously regretting her words. It was an unfortunate situation. She lived alone, and she died on the property. Chapter 6. I turned to Tom, but before I could get the question out, he held up his hands in defense. I swear this is the first I'm hearing of it. It didn't happen inside the house, Virginia insisted. At any rate, you don't see a lot of turnover in this neighborhood. Lucky us, I muttered, earning a look from Tom. Trying to make up for my snark, I said, a house ghost wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. A what? Tom asked. His tone was light, but I could sense the please drop it, May, beneath it. A ghost that comes with a house. New England's lousy with them. You read too many books, he laughed, putting an arm around my shoulders. Virginia watched our exchange, her expression inscrutable. No one said anything about a haunting. Her death was unfortunate, but inevitable. Mrs. Talbot was quite old. I opened my mouth to ask another question, but closed it when I caught the look on Tom's face. At any rate, Virginia went on, motioning to a door, the garage is through there. I was willing to shelve the topic for the time being, but the look on my face let Tom know I wasn't going to forget about the dead woman. My understanding is that Mrs. Talbot's health kept her from attending to the home's exterior, Virginia went on, leading me to believe that the garage must be in rough shape. Tom unlatched 2 deadbolts and a chain lock, then yanked hard on the handle twice before realizing that a 4th lock had to be disengaged at the base of the door. Once he finally got it open, he stepped through and, after feeling around on the wall, flipped a switch, bathing the garage in dim light. Squinting, he said, Not so bad, but there's only room for 1 car. Same is true for all the homes in the cul-de-sac, Virginia said shortly. Rock, paper, scissors for it? I rolled my eyes, but couldn't help letting a little laugh escape. We only had 1 car. I didn't care about parking. I was more interested in all those locks. I liked them. I liked how difficult it had been for Tom to get that door open. It felt safe, secure. No one was getting into that house unless we let them in. I moved to the large picture window above the sink to get a look at the backyard. Virginia flipped a switch beneath the kitchen cabinets, illuminating a lawn that extended about 50 feet back before it met dense forest. The property abuts Payne Woods. It's conservation land, she explained. There's a path that connects to the walking trail out to Akron Lake back there somewhere. Every yard in the cul-de-sac has one. Come on, I'll show you the patio. That's the door to the basement. Virginia motioned to our right as we followed her down a back hallway. And this is a nice-sized pantry. She opened double doors, revealing a deep closet lined with shelves. The contact paper has to go, but you can't beat the storage. Next came the powder room, a riot of mint green and black tile. As I understand it, the plumbing is in good condition. Tom reached for my hand, and I could sense his excitement. I did my best to look positive, but I felt I'd seen enough. Of all the homes we'd toured, this was the largest in our price range, and none of those properties came close to its level of privacy, but we hadn't even seen the entire first floor, and I was already overwhelmed by the amount of work the house needed. On top of all that, the mildewy smell was giving me a headache. The living room's floor print mirrored the kitchen and dining area. Like the rest of the first floor, its walls were that awful yellow beige. Recessed lighting provided some light, but it only highlighted the battered wood floors. Virginia shoved aside heavy velvet maroon curtains at the back wall and unlatched a set of French doors behind them. These lead out to the patio, brick, of course. It's in relatively good shape. I inhaled deeply as fresh air flowed into the room. As the musty smell lifted, I felt my shoulders loosen. Tom and Virginia stepped outside, but I stayed back to get a better look at the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves flanking the fireplace. Currently a dingy taupe, I imagined them shiny, with a fresh coat of white paint, and they reminded me of all the books I'd lost in the break-in. "It's a working fireplace, but it needs cleaning," Virginia intoned, causing me to jump. I hadn't heard her approach. "This room is really cozy," I said. Virginia eyed the soot-darkened mantelpiece. "It could be." "What's this?" I moved closer to the fireplace, bending down to get a closer look. A circle, the size of a bottle cap with a dot in its center, had been drawn with chalk on one of the interior bricks. Tom leaned down beside me. "Probably just scribbles from one of the woman's grandkids." He reached out and rubbed it off the brick. "Tom," I admonished. "What?" he replied absently. "Let's take a look upstairs." Virginia turned toward the front of the house. "Follow me," she instructed, sounding bored. Chapter 7. We climbed the well-worn, creaky steps to the second floor. The sickly yellow walls in the upstairs hallway were marked by the ghosts of framed photos and the nails upon which they once hung. At the top of the stairs was a full bath where peachy pink wall tiles met a chipped black and white tile floor. The primary bedroom had wall-to-wall emerald green carpet and its own bath, sage green tile and tub, rust-stained sink and toilet. Across the hall were two smaller bedrooms, similarly dingy but with really impressive closet space. Virginia yanked open a stubborn set of accordion doors in the hallway. "Here's your washer and dryer." "Oh, wow," I exclaimed, truly impressed by the house for the first time. Laundry right outside the bedroom door was an unthinkable dream in the city. Virginia actually smiled at my reaction and pointed behind us. "You've got potential for 2 more bedrooms up there." "Up where?" I asked, following her gaze. "The attic." She opened a heavy wooden door that led to a narrow passage, and we followed her up to the unfinished space. "It's a good spot to put teenagers," she commented. "Or Tom's think about what you've done room," I suggested dryly. Virginia's face froze in a moment of confusion, but quickly softened as Tom let out a bark of laughter. The massive attic was semi-finished. Bare drywall with exposed nail heads covered the slanted roof, but the floors matched those in the rest of the house. I couldn't imagine it being used for anything but storage, but I tried to be positive, commenting a bland, "Wow, so much space." "What about the basement?" Tom asked. "How's it look down there?" "You're welcome to take a peek," Virginia replied. We were halfway down to the first floor when a heavy thud echoed through the hallway. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, nearly bumping into Virginia, who'd frozen in place 2 steps below me. Tom returned to the upper landing. "Must have been the attic door." I watched him disappear around the corner, then turned to Virginia, intending to ask the age of the house just to make small talk, when I caught a look of sheer terror on her face. She quickly forced a smile and continued downstairs. Before I could say anything, Tom called, "Must be a draft somewhere." Virginia's confident demeanor was gone. "Old houses," she muttered. We followed her back through the gloomy kitchen, and Tom said, "The house is what, 40, 50 years old?" echoing my earlier thought. The cul-de-sac was developed in 1966 by Elwyn Payne. All Payne colonials have 3 floors of livable space and the same herringbone-patterned brick patio out back. Virginia's voice grew steadier as she spoke. Well, at nearly 60 years old, this place is bound to have some creaks and groans, Tom pointed out. Payne, I said. Like the woods out back? Exactly. He was quite influential in developing Woodland Hills. He built this cul-de-sac for his family. He even named the street. I wondered how it got such an interesting name. Virginia slid the chain lock and turned a deadbolt, yanked open the door, and stood back. You don't mind if I stay up here? She held up her phone with a shaky hand. Cell service. I'm waiting for a text from my daughter. No problem, Tom replied. I just want to get a quick look at the systems. I followed him down the creaky wooden steps. The walls were a collage of fieldstones set in gritty concrete. Down there, the musty smell in the house carried something sharp beneath it, a tang that forced me to take shallow breaths. They gotta air this place out. It just needs a good dehumidifier, Tom said, walking to the back corner of the basement, pulling strings to bare bulbs overhead as he went. So, what do you think? I think it's a great place to get murdered by the Blair Witch. The bulkhead was replaced within the last few years, Virginia called from the top of the steps, causing me to jump. Embarrassed, I wondered if she'd heard my comment. I kept close to the stairs and was relieved when Tom returned from the shadows. He pointed up at the ceiling and made a "what's up with her" gesture. I just shrugged. He leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. So, what do you think? I met his eyes. I mean, yeah, it has a lot of potential, but doesn't really matter, right? Why? They already have an offer. They're considering an offer, he pointed out. What are the chances? May, don't worry about all that. Do you like the house? The stuffy, humid air was getting to me. I leaned against the stair railing. I mean, our furniture won't even fill up the living room. He grinned. It is a lot of space for 2 people. To call it a fixer-upper is an understatement, I added. The floors need sanding and staining, and I think the windows are as old as the house, he said. Every inch of this place needs at least 2 coats of paint, and the bathrooms have to be gutted. Not to mention the kitchen. It's a total money pit, right? I asked. He blew out a breath. It's listed far lower than it's worth. More importantly, it's well within our budget. That's the thing. Why is it so cheap? The executor of the estate probably just wants to be rid of it. He sat down beside me on the steps. Those are just details. Do you like the house? I didn't like the house, but I looked into his eyes and saw how hopeful he was, and I didn't want to disappoint him. It could be great, I told him. He smiled. It will be great, he said confidently. I can't believe this is actually happening. He stood and pulled me up with him, wrapping his arms around me as he lifted me up into a bear hug and bounced me up and down. Stop, you're going to make me throw up, I laughed. Everything all right down there? Virginia called. It's perfect, Tom yelled back. As he put me back down, a glint of light beneath the stairs caught my eye. I bent down to peer through the wooden steps. What's that? I bet you found the keystone, Virginia said, peering down at us. There's one in every house on the cul-de-sac. I think they were meant as gifts for the builder's children. We moved closer to examine it. A cross-cut section of a log, oak, Tom asserted knowingly, edged in dark gray metal, had been set into the concrete floor, its smooth surface inlaid with purple gemstones around the perimeter. Carved into the wood was a rudimentary eye above a triangle, with short lines darting in from the upper half of a circle, the word Avarita written in cursive below them. Incredible, said Tom in a low voice. Could that be a last name? I asked. I don't think so. There's another one of those chalk circles, I said, pointing to the floor above the keystone. The moment the words were out of my mouth, I regretted them. Tom kicked a foot out and scuffed the mark from the dusty floor. You shouldn't do that, I protested. This isn't our house. It isn't our house yet. Chapter 8. The systems are old, but that's no surprise, Tom commented, climbing the stairs. Relieved to escape the reeking basement, I trailed right behind him, closing the heavy door firmly as we joined Virginia in the kitchen. Can I answer any other questions? She asked, obviously impatient. What's the neighborhood like? I asked. Family-oriented. There are kids of all ages and some empty nesters. And how many houses are there in the cul-de-sac? Tom furrowed his brow and smiled at me, a question in his eyes. My anxiety was rising. The place needed more work than I could even begin to fathom, and now that it was fully dark, the black windows in that dimly lit kitchen were unnerving. We'd passed 3 houses on our way in, but that island in the center of the street blocked the view of the neighborhood. We were miles from the center of town. Those woods were deep and dense. We'd be pretty isolated if anything bad happened, like a break-in. 7 homes in total, including this one, Virginia answered. Generous lot, so you aren't on top of each other. I forced a tight smile, unable to respond. The thought, maybe this isn't such a good idea, had begun to take root. Tom rested his hands on the kitchen island. All right, so what's the catch? Catch? The house is listed far below market value. Actually, forget the house. The property, over 2 acres bordering conservation land. We could knock this place down and rebuild and still be ahead of the game. The bylaws do not allow for new construction, Virginia said quickly. You know what I'm getting at, Tom pressed. Well, you can see for yourself that it needs updating. Virginia sighed. Look, the neighborhood is deemed historic by the town, so owners must abide by certain guidelines. For instance, all exteriors must comply with the rules set by the neighborhood association. Any massive renovations, like changes to the exterior of the home, for example, would prove nearly impossible to permit. Not everyone wants to deal with that type of restriction. The seller, the estate, understands that. On the other hand, the interior is free game. You can update the kitchen and baths and make all the cosmetic improvements you like inside the house without the town or association piping up. Okay. Do you know of any major red flags? Tom asked pointedly. Above us there was a noise, a creak, like a soft footstep on an old floorboard. We all looked up. Old house, Tom said lightly, catching my eye. I watched as Virginia's gaze darted toward the foyer before returning to Tom. She said, I don't know of any red flags. And I didn't believe her for 1 second. Well, thank you for being so candid. I think we're prepared to put in an offer. I sucked in a breath. Tom, maybe we should... Honey, we're never going to come across an opportunity like this again. It just doesn't exist. Right, but maybe we should sleep on it. I'll remind you that there's already an offer on the table, Virginia cautioned. And the prospective buyers have their cocktail party scheduled for tomorrow night. I know the couple. They've been in Woodland Hills for some time, and I believe the wife plays tennis with several of the women in this neighborhood. I held up a hand. Cocktail party? With the neighborhood association, Virginia said impatiently. Their approval of prospective buyers is a requirement. Tom blew out a breath. That sounds a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Illegal? I assure you it's all above board. Well, then there's no harm in throwing our hat in the ring, said Tom. We'll offer $50,000 over asking, contingent upon an inspection. I literally gasped. Virginia tilted her head to the side. May I offer a suggestion? Please. The current offer waives the inspection contingency. If you were to do the same, it might give you a competitive edge. Done. Tom, are you sure about this? Without missing a beat, Virginia began typing into her phone. I'll draw it up. You can sign electronically, and we should have a response by mid-morning. Chapter 9. In the short hours between our offer and the seller's response, my emotions seesawed from excited anticipation to utter dread. I barely slept. My thoughts circled relentlessly. How can we leave the city? Oh my God, the house is an absolute money pit. We could lose everything trying to make it livable. But there are more closets in that house than I could ever dream of filling, and those bookshelves. It's so isolated. Tom shouldn't have made an offer without talking it through with me. He knows what he's doing. It's his job. And the house could be beautiful. Around and around, simultaneously convincing myself it was the right decision and actively suppressing my intuition. I was eating lunch in the break room the next day, flipping through a home design magazine, when my cell phone buzzed with an incoming text. How would you like to be my date for a cocktail party in the burbs? I didn't bother to text. I called. I thought the other people had their party tonight. They do, but we get to go first, Tom said excitedly. We really have to do this? Looks like it. We've been invited to a neighborhood association meet and greet at the home of Lucretia and Forbes Mooney. They anticipate our company at 6 o'clock with prompt departure by 7. And the other people who want the house go in after us? Could this be any more awkward? I thought you'd be excited. I blew out a breath. I am, sorry, just anxious. Don't be. I'll pick you up at 5:15 in front of the apartment. I can't believe this is actually happening, I said, blaming the pit in my stomach on my social anxiety. Me either, Tom replied happily. Oh, and one more thing. The invitation specifies cocktail casual attire. Who in the world sets a dress code for a neighborhood association meeting? He laughed. I guess we'll find out. I gotta go. 5:15, okay? We can't be late. Woodland Hills, Angela read, craning her neck to see my computer screen. Snoop? We were side by side at the reference desk. The afternoon had been slow, so I was scrolling through the town website. We put in an offer on a house last night, I admitted. Angela let out a low whistle. What? I didn't know you guys were rich. I snorted. We aren't. We found a fixer-upper. She sucked air in through her teeth. What? Nothing. It's a really pretty town. It's just, in the ranking of snobby little suburbs, Woodland Hills is right up there. I mean, I grew up in Wellesley, and they even gave us a run for our money. I waved the comment away. We live in Beacon Hill. How much more pretentious can you get? Angela shook her head. No, that's different. Out there, it's next-level Stepford. They're all in this, sticky, sweet, passive-aggressive competition with each other. Well, we're meeting our prospective neighbors tonight, so I guess we'll see for ourselves. Meeting the neighbors? They invited us to a cocktail party. You won't even go out for drinks with me and the children's librarians on Thursdays, Angela grumbled. It's not really my choice, I laughed. We need the neighborhood association to sign off on us if we want the house. That is exactly what I'm talking about. They do elitist shit like that to make themselves feel exclusive. It gives us a chance to vet them too, I insisted, trying to convince myself as much as I was trying to convince her. If they're a bunch of snobs, it's better to know before we buy the house, right? I guess so. It's just that town is like a living Instagram account. Everyone is thin and rich and fabulous. I don't know if I could handle being surrounded by that 24/7. The words carried an unexpected sting, as though she were implying that I couldn't fit into such a place. Tom's new office is there, I said defensively, and it's the first house we've seen that works for us. Whatever, it's a stupid cocktail party. We just need these people to like us. Angela stared at me. This isn't you, at all. When have you ever cared if someone liked you? I don't. It's just that we need them to approve the sale. Nay, do you hear what you're saying? It's not a big deal. Hold on. A smile spread across Angela's face. Are you pregnant? No. Then why the hell are you moving out to the suburbs? I just don't feel safe in our apartment anymore. So move to a building with a doorman. I turned back to my computer screen. Sorry, Angela said, reaching out a hand to touch my arm. I'm being a jerk. What will your commute look like? 30, 40 minutes? I couldn't meet her eyes. She groaned. Tell me you aren't quitting. We'd have to get a second car and... May! I know, but if we get the place, I'll have to take some time to fix up the house, and then I can find a job out there. I think they have a nice town library. Angela looked worried. I'm going to miss you. I forced a smile. It's not like I'm moving across the country. No, it's worse, she deadpanned. Well, you want to go grab a coffee on our break? I'd better not. I need to take off a little early to get ready for tonight. She turned back to her computer screen. After a long moment, she asked, What are you going to wear? I glanced at her, then back at my computer. What? She pressed. Knowing me so well, she knew I was holding something back. The invitation calls for cocktail casual, I admitted. Angela just closed her eyes and shook her head. Chapter 10. Had I known we were attending a cocktail party, I would have brought a change of clothing to work. As it was, there was no way to avoid going to the apartment alone. Logically, I knew it was safe, but that didn't stop my hands from shaking as I unlocked the door. By some miracle, the lunatic who'd trashed our apartment hadn't torn all of our clothing to shreds. I chose a navy blue shift dress and sable brown heels, then slid on some gold bangles and a pair of dangly gold earrings. My reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror was pale and tired. My auburn hair looked especially flat, my bangs wonky. I applied mascara and then attempted to cover the dark shadows beneath my eyes, but my attempts only seemed to highlight my exhaustion. It would have to do, and I was desperate to get out of that apartment. I rushed downstairs to wait for Tom in our building's tiny lobby. He pulled up not a minute later. I jumped into the car and adjusted the vent to blow cool air on my face. "I like cocktail casual May," he said, raising his eyebrows up and down, making me laugh. "I got some intel at work," he went on, winding the car down Beacon Hill's narrow streets. "Robbie plays softball with a guy who golfs with our host, Forbes. Sounds like he's a little intense, but a good guy overall." When Tom didn't offer up any more details, I pressed, "That's it?" "Well, yeah. You said intel." "Maybe intel is an exaggeration, but it's good to know he's a nice guy, right?" I rolled my eyes. I feel like I'm rushing a sorority. Delta Delta Suburbia. "Did Virginia say anything about what they thought of our offer?" "No, but the fact that we got an invitation so quickly speaks volumes." He reached for my hand. "I have a surprise." "I don't know if I can handle any surprises right now." 63636. "What's that?" "It's the combination to the lockbox for number 4 Gehenna Circle." "That name," I groaned. "What's wrong with the street name?" His tone was light, but I could sense the edge beneath it. "It means hell. We're buying a house on Hell Circle." "No way," he chuckled. That developer must have been quite the character. He glanced over at me. "Aren't you excited we get to get another look at the place?" "Of course," I lied. The truth was I was worried. We'd been looking at houses for a couple months, but suddenly the whole thing felt so rushed. No, inevitable. I did my best to push aside the anxiety. This was what we wanted. We'd be out of the city in a safe neighborhood in a house that had the potential to be gorgeous. I just couldn't shake the feeling that it was all so dreadfully imminent. "Is Virginia meeting us there?" I asked. Tom's smile broadened. "Nope." The hazy pollen-laden air cast a soft glow over the cul-de-sac. "I still can't believe we can afford this," I whispered to the car window as we made our way to number 4. "We better be quick," Tom cautioned, turning into the driveway. "We only have 10 minutes before we're due down the street." I studied the home's exterior as he retrieved the key. At first glance, it resembled every other house in the neighborhood, but up close, I realized just how neglected it had been. Paint peeled from the siding and gray chips littered the ground in front of the house. Green moss clung to the edges of the roof, and what I'd originally seen as healthy, if overgrown, rhododendron lining the front of the home proved rather skeletal in the light. There were 2 new plantings to either side of the front steps, small, spiky-leaved bushes that I hadn't noticed the night before. "I didn't see those last night," I commented, pointing to them. "Huh, me either," Tom replied dismissively as he turned the key in the lock. "Ready?" He stepped inside, and I followed closely behind. The smell hit me before my eyes had a chance to adjust to the darkness. "Ugh," I groaned. "It smells like that basement." Tom agreed. "I wonder if there's a leak." I took a step back onto the front stoop for air while he went to investigate. "No leaks," he declared moments later from the end of the hall. "It's just musty from the house being closed up." "What is that? It's not just damp. I can't place the smell." "Dead rodents," Tom said knowingly. "Ugh, how do you know that?" "You show enough houses, you start to recognize that smell," he replied, moving into the kitchen. I followed, leaving the front door open to allow air to circulate. "The cabinets are in pretty good shape," he pointed out, "but the appliances are shot." I nodded and made the circuit into the living room through the back hall, my footsteps echoing through the empty house. "What are you thinking?" I hesitated. "I'm worried we might be so wrapped up in imagining what the house could be that we aren't fully acknowledging what it'll take to get it there." "It's an incredible deal, May. A unicorn. You don't find this kind of space. The property alone." "You don't need to give me the hard sell," I cut in, forcing a smile. "It's a great house. I just want to be sure we can take this on. I don't think either of us wants to live in a moldy old dump that smells like dead mice, right? Are you having second thoughts?" I recognized that we were being very careful with one another, tiptoeing, neither of us saying what we were really thinking. I mean, I knew what he thought. He thought we simply couldn't pass up the opportunity. But I wasn't exactly sure what I was thinking. That damn smell was so distracting. The idea of the house was great, but the house itself, it just wasn't. It was a hot mess. A stinking hot mess. When I thought back on the homes we'd trudged through in our search, perfectly nice houses with smaller yards closer to town, older homes well cared for but quirky and cramped, new houses plotted in small square lots in checkerboard neighborhoods, old trees cleared away and replaced by anemic plantings. As I stood there trying to answer Tom, a memory of my mother came into my mind, of the only time she and my dad came to visit us in the city. "How you'd managed to live in this tiny shoebox is beyond me," she'd said of the Beacon Hill apartment I'd been so proud of. "Those places across the street have little balconies. Why don't you get one of those?" "Here's the thing," I said finally, my eyes fixed on the scratched floor. "I don't want to live in the crappiest house on the block. I'm up for the challenge as long as you think we can make it look at least as good as those other houses. I promise you won't even recognize this place once we're through with it. We'll just have to be patient, one project at a time, right?" "Sure," I sighed. "But we gotta convince these people to let us buy it first." Chapter 11. Moments later, and 2 doors down, we arrived at the home of Lucretia and Forbes Mooney. A stark contrast to our prospective house. The gray paint was fresh, the black shutters perfectly in line, and the roof looked clean enough to eat from. A young woman in a white shirt and black pants opened the door and invited us inside. "Mrs. Mooney is in the dining room," she informed us, leading the way into a gleaming chef's kitchen of marble and stainless steel. Beneath the smell of something bready and garlicky baking in the oven, I sensed that same musty tang I'd smelled in number 4, though it was much more subtle. "You're here." A gorgeous woman in her 40s with a glossy jet-black bob sauntered over, offering us each an air kiss. "I'm Lucretia, but everyone calls me Lucky. We've been on the edge of our seats. Who are these strangers that swooped in just in time? And you're young, thank God." She took a step back, assessing me with sparkling deep brown eyes. "Oh, you're just adorable. Those freckles," she exclaimed, leaning in to kiss the air beside my cheek again. "What can we get you to drink?" The caterer poured a Chardonnay for me and a Corona for Tom. "Everyone's out on the patio," Lucky informed us conspiratorially. "I thought it would be better if you had a moment to catch your breath before you walked straight into the hornet's nest. Please don't think we're a bunch of self-important busybodies. Every single one of us had to deal with this neighborhood association nonsense. We've all been through this little formality." She shook her head, and diamonds the size of peanut M&Ms sparkled in her ears. "Those ridiculous bylaws force us to meet as a group before we can sign off on that silly paperwork, but it's as good an excuse as any to get to know one another." Reaching out her hand, she tucked my hair behind my ears and tisked. "Just adorable." Then she turned on her heel. "Follow me," she instructed, leading us through the back hall. I snuck a glance at the powder room, a mirror image of the one down the street, but instead of mint green and black, its walls were covered in navy blue zebra print wallpaper, the mirror framed in lacquered green bamboo. "Your home is stunning." Lucky waved away the compliment. "A work in progress." She stopped in front of the French doors in the living room, which were framed by rich linen curtains hung from a brass rod. With a hand on each doorknob, she took in a dramatic breath in through her nose and then blew it out through her mouth. Turning to look at us over her shoulder, her dark eyes twinkling, she stage whispered, "Deep breath, shoulders back. They're going to love you," before sweeping the doors wide open. "Our saviors have arrived," Lucky sang as she stepped onto the brick patio. The space held cushioned outdoor seating, a large circular teak table with a navy blue and white umbrella, and potted ferns of varying sizes. It also contained about a dozen partygoers who all seemed to turn as one at Lucky's announcement, their faces illuminated by an alarming number of tiki torches. Lucky's husband, Forbes, strode over and gave Tom a firm handshake and me a firm kiss on the cheek. "So glad you're considering the neighborhood." The man was a study in silver foxhood, one chiseled by an unapologetic CrossFit paleo lifestyle. A light tan set off his salt and pepper hair. "Do you golf?" he asked Tom. "Not if I can help it." "Good answer," Forbes laughed, slapping him on the back. "You're a Boston College guy." It was a statement, not a question. "That's right." What did you study? Business, Tom replied, with a minor in Christianity and culture. That's where the money is, chuckled Forbes. It brought me May, Tom smiled. I cringed a little, as I always did when Tom slipped into charming realtor mode. You went to BC too? Lucky asked. No, Simmons. I was working on a paper for a 20th century Christianity class, and I pretended I couldn't use the library photocopier, so she'd have to help me, Tom cut in. I suppressed a grimace. Lucky caught my eye and winked. I straightened my shoulders and forced myself to smile brightly as Forbes introduced us around. This here is Evelyn and Adam Gulliver, he boomed. They live at number 1, the first house on the right as you come over the bridge. We exchanged handshakes with a plump bleach blonde in her mid-30s and her equally hefty dark husband. Do you have kids? Evelyn asked, holding a martini glass full of bright pink liquid. We shook our heads in unison. The Gullivers have enough children for all of us, Lucky quipped. The Gullivers have enough everything for all of us, Forbes added jovially. 4 boys, Adam confirmed good-naturedly. I'd have 4 more if I could. They're such a blessing. You'll see, Evelyn said, knowingly before slurping the pink concoction in her hand. Cheryl Kingsley. A sinewy woman offered her hand to me and Tom in turn. I tried my best not to gawk. Her skin had been pulled so taut over her cheeks that when she spoke, I worried it might tear. Are you in finance? The question was directed at Tom. No, real estate. Commercial or residential? Residential. Black Oak Realty, right here in town. I recently transferred from the downtown office. I see. My oldest daughter's boyfriend is on the commercial side. New York, not Boston. My youngest dates a man at Goldman, and it's just me in that big old house. I'm divorced. Her ice blue eyes landed on me. And you? I stammered. Do you work? Cheryl's eyebrows twitched on her nearly frozen forehead. Oh, yes, I'm a librarian. At the Boston Public Library, Lucky gushed. Adam's working on a cookbook, Evelyn Gulliver declared, sloshing her drink. You two should talk. I just attended a junior league fundraiser in the courtyard, said Lucky. Are you involved with event planning? No, I actually work in reference at the West End branch. Oh, really? Cheryl intoned, as if catching me in a lie. Tom put his arm around my waist and pulled me close. She's like a walking, talking Google. I wanted to kick him. And your church? Cheryl again. We don't actually, I began, when Tom cut in. We were both raised Catholic. Then I'll see you at St. Joe's. That's enough church talk for a Friday night. A man in his 50s who'd been watching the interaction from a patio chair stood. Looks like we're going in order of our addresses, so I guess that means we're next. He brushed crumbs off his beer belly and pointed to a pleasant-looking woman sitting in the chair beside his. We're at number 3. I'm Cornish Rust, and this is my wife, Linda. We'll be your next-door neighbors, the woman said from her chair, waving a hand wrapped to the wrist in a black brace. From my vantage point, I had a clear view of the 2 inches of gray roots atop her otherwise copper-brown hair. We have a 16-year-old, Tristan, she went on. He'd be glad to help you out with yard work. We're going to need it, Tom enthused. Well, Cornish chuckled. I don't know if he'll be glad to do it, but if you throw him $40, he'll sure pretend. Only if you want to pay double for a half-assed job, barked a tall man who'd been hanging back. Don't forget to mention Poppy. Can I throw her $40 to stay out of my wife's vegetable garden? She's an outdoor cat, Grill. We haven't figured out how to explain property lines to her, Cornish responded tightly. Well, then, let's all hope she doesn't wander her way out to that coyote den in the woods. Grill, a small woman behind him protested softly. The man ignored her, instead staring down Cornish with an eerie smirk. That brings us to Grill and Beretta Reed, number 5, Forbes cut in. Your next-door neighbors to the west. If you get the house, Grill all but growled, before taking a draw from his beer bottle. Stop it, Grill, or you'll scare them off, Lucky admonished. Just because you two don't like the other couple bidding on the house doesn't mean we have to vote for these guys, he shot back. We're glad to meet you, his wife piped up, obviously embarrassed by her husband's behavior. Uncomfortable silence fell over the small gathering. Yeah, great to meet you, Grill grumbled, putting his beer bottle down with a worrisome crack on a ceramic garden stool. I have to be in the operating room early. Beretta, let's go. What about the Molochs? Lucky demanded. You have to meet them. No, I don't, Grill shot back. This is wasted enough time, and the fucking mosquitoes are eating me alive. If you two seriously want to sink your money into that pit, then who am I to stop you? We'll vote for whichever sucker the association picks. His wife carefully placed her glass of ice water on the patio table. Good to see you all, she stammered. Lucky elegantly slipped an arm through Beretta's and walked her into the house. Forbes clapped his hands together. All right, who needs a refill? Chapter 12. I accepted another glass of wine as Evelyn held her glass out to the cater waiter, simpering, Will you be a doll and roll a touch more sugar on the rim this time? Thank you, honey. Meanwhile, Forbes announced, We saved the prettiest for last. There was a round of too loud laughter and a wolf whistle from Cornish, which earned him a gentle slap on the arm from his wife. These two offensively attractive people are Catherine and Derek Valentine, said Forbes. They're next door at number 7, the last house before the bridge. The couple seemed velcroed to one another, his arm around her tiny waist, half her chest pressed against his triceps as if she couldn't get close enough to him. I guess they were in their early 30s. Derek was tall and toned, his head shaved, a tight beard on his chiseled jaw. Catherine's skin glowed, almost as tall as her husband and absolutely gorgeous. She wore a just this side of sheer white cotton summer dress. Call me Kat, she said, her long auburn hair swaying around her bare shoulders. You'll just love it here. Do you run? Not if I can help it, I replied, taking a page out of Tom's book. But Tom likes to jog. What about walking? She pressed, placing a hand on my arm. There's a wooded path behind the neighborhood that goes out about half a mile to the lake. Kat's a Pilates instructor, Lucky explained. She's always pushing her active lifestyle agenda on us. Was a Pilates instructor, Kat corrected, rolling her heavily lashed eyes. But that was before I had the boys. How many children do you have? I asked, unable to conceal my surprise. 2. Catherine held up her fingers in a peace sign. Derek Jr., we call him DJ, is 5, and Edward just turned 3. Soon the guys broke off and stood close to the house, talking about whatever guys talk about, and I found myself sitting in a comfortable patio chair, chatting with Lucky, Kat, Linda, Evelyn, and Cheryl. By the time we finally made the decision, I was dying to get out of the city, Evelyn explained, slurring slightly. Not us, Lucky admitted. Forbes had to drag me out of Beacon Hill kicking and screaming. Our penthouse was stunning, Cheryl drawled, but David insisted upon moving us out to the sticks. Little did I know he wanted this city all to himself and his personal assistant. We're only 30 minutes outside of the city, Cheryl, Linda pointed out, ignoring the woman's comment about her ex-husband. More like 45, Cheryl scoffed. I'm just one of those people who needs access to culture. Where do you live? Linda asked me. Beacon Hill. I love that neighborhood, Kat cooed. Why the hell are you guys moving out here? All the women laughed except for Evelyn. They want to start a family. You can't do that in a tiny apartment. That's what we did for a couple years, Kat said, a tinge of defensiveness in her voice. We've been considering a move since Tom transferred out here, I explained, but then I hesitated, unsure if I should share too much. Well, we had a break-in, and it really pushed up our timeline. Oh, how awful, Kat cried. What happened? Evelyn demanded, leaning forward. The guy didn't steal anything, but he destroyed most of our belongings. I walked in while it was happening. I was interrupted by a chorus of, "Oh my gods." You're not safe anywhere anymore, Cheryl said knowingly. If they keep allowing criminals to stream into this country. I'm sorry, at what point did May say an immigrant broke into her apartment? Kat demanded. Or did I miss something? Well, thank God nothing happened to you or Tom, Lucky cut in. We've never had any trouble of that kind here. The group fell silent. It seems like such a nice, quiet neighborhood, I said to fill the space, worried that maybe I shouldn't have told them. I didn't want them to think I'd been fishing for sympathy. It is very peaceful here, Lucky enthused. Very quiet. And really, your commute won't be bad at all. Forbes is in the city quite a bit, and he doesn't complain. Oh, if we move, I plan to take some time to get the house together, and then I was thinking I'd look for a job nearby. I trailed off as I watched the women exchange looks, again worried I'd said too much, or the wrong thing. So you'll spend a lot of time at home, said Cheryl, Alone, Evelyn hiccuped. Lucky shot the women a look I couldn't quite read. You'll certainly have enough to keep you busy at the house. Mrs. Talbot just couldn't keep up with it the past few years, poor thing. She leaned over and gave my leg a squeeze. Think of it as a blank slate. You'll make it your own. It'll give you a chance to get used to the house, Kat said softly. To being out here in the burbs, Lucky clarified. You're smart to oversee the renovations. I'll get you the name of my tile guy. He's utterly fastidious. Thank you, I replied. The bathrooms are definitely on the list, but I know we want to tackle the exterior right away. I didn't want them to think we'd leave the place looking so decrepit if we moved in. In that case, I can give you the number for the landscape architect we used, Kat offered. Thanks, I replied, my heart rate beginning to rise. I didn't even know what a landscape architect was, let alone the fact that we needed one. We were going to paint the house and fix the roof. You have the approved paint color, said Cheryl. Approved paint color? Puritan gray, the women all said together, then broke out into laughter. I fixed a smile on my face and placed my half-empty wine glass down on the garden stool beside me. Kat put a hand on my arm. Historic district, she explained, rolling her eyes. Association rules and all that. We're overwhelming her, Linda cut in. Thankfully, talk turned to local gossip. I nodded along as they caught me up on this restaurant sushi and that bitchy woman from the yoga studio, on the best place to buy brie, Wasicks in nearby Wellesley, and get a good cup of coffee, roasted on Main Street. As I listened, I felt myself beginning to envy them. These women had it all figured out, the house and family, the community. I was an outsider, but they made a real effort to include me. My desire to be a part of their world grew as the conversation wore on, and I realized that I could be. All it took was getting that house. Too soon, Lucky glanced down at her watch. Listen, I wish we could keep you here all night, but we have to do the whole dog and pony for the Mollocks. Evelyn groaned. They're not that bad, Kat admonished. I've never met 'em, said Linda. Consider yourself blessed. She's an insufferable social climber, and Forbes insists he cheats at golf. I stood. Lucky, I can't thank you enough. It was wonderful meeting all of you. We're so excited about the house, and we really hope... No need for hope, Lucky cut in. If you want it, the place is yours. Well, there you have it, the first 12 chapters. As usual, I have bitten off more than I can chew. I thought this would be like a 45-minute thing, but we are over an hour right now. So let's hope my voice holds out for this project. I hope you're enjoying it. And next time, we'll find out what happens when May and Tom move into the house. Take care. See you in a week.